Okay, so this wasn't really a planned video, um, but I feel like making it. Fuck it, I'm just gonna talk about this. I'm gonna talk about Donald Trump. And some of what I'm going to say relates in part to my last video. I mentioned in that video that the reason Trump gets the support he does, or at least my perception of why he gets the support he does, is because he is very politically incorrect. Now, I've said that I detest political correctness, and I do. But I've also said that when someone is running for president of the United States or for any major political role, they do also have responsibility. Now, I've come to the conclusion that Donald Trump is a demagogue. The man is dangerous, I believe. And this is something I've given considerable thought to. A few weeks ago, maybe a bit more than that, I thought, well, maybe the media, to some extent, is exaggerating the Donald. But I've watched his campaign very closely, and I have to say I'm quite concerned about it. Now, quick disclaimer: I'm not a Bernie Sanders. Excuse me, I've been up all night. I'm not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I'm not a leftist. I'm not anything of the sort, and I'm not American, as you could probably tell by my accent. I'm from the UK, but I do believe that whoever ends up in the White House, especially if it's Trump, will have an impact on other countries. So, of course, there's an outside interest. I'm going to explain why I think Trump is dangerous. Now, there have been some who have called him a fascist. A while back, I would have said, well, this is kind of slandering. He's not a fascist and so on. But you know what? When I consider the things that this man comes out with, there is actually not that many differences between how the Third Reich behaved in Germany in the 30s and the way Trump behaves in America today. It's not actually that different. There are a few parallels. Firstly, both the Third Reich and Trump uses ultranationalism. Now, nothing wrong with patriotism, nothing wrong with saying you love your country and so on. But Trump uses a certain brand of ultranationalism, which I believe is dangerous. It's a very much them and us mentality. And even more or less the rest of the Republican field isn't using the sort of language that Trump is using. And if you look at some of the supporters flocking to Trump, some of them are outright Nazi sympathizers, and there's no question about it. I'm not saying all of them are, but there is no question that Trump is supporting some very extreme people. Trump is attracting some very extreme people. Now, you might argue there are communists who are going to vote for Bernie Sanders, and there's religious nuts that are going to vote for Ted Cruz and so on. But I think Trump gets an exceptional level of extreme support, and that to me is concerning. Um, he has also shown that for someone who so bombastically comes out with the statements that he comes out with, for someone who has no problem offending many different groups, he is actually very thin-skinned himself. He had a tantrum with that Fox News debate because he was insisting that Megyn Kelly was biased. Um, Even if she was partly biased, the sort of antics he uses shows an incredible arrogance on his part. I don't think she was biased, actually. I think her question was legitimate. And believe me, it's not every day I would be defending Megyn Kelly. But, the fact that people praise him having that little tantrum and going and holding his own debate, to me, just demonstrates something about the mentality of Trump supporters, how they can actually see that that is somehow something to praise. It just shows to me that he's undemocratic. If he's not willing to take part in a debate with other candidates. Um, I mean, the ego that this man has just seems to know no bounds. And of course, every presidential candidate has confidence, they believe in themselves, but Trump soars above that to a level of sheer, unbelievable egotism. And he doesn't even try to hide it. Occasionally, he'll throw in a few diplomatic gestures like, oh, I'm not saying this to be to show off or something, but then he totally contradicts his own logic. The man is utterly full of himself. Um, no question he's been a very successful businessman, no question about that. But I also believe that his vast wealth has kind of led him to this notion that he's unstoppable. And the truth is, in America, money does speak. So I think that is also a factor. Um, but the sort of things that have gone on in Trump rallies, whenever there has been dissent and people have been roughed up, to me that is very disturbing. Now, if someone is genuinely posing a threat, then fine, let the security do their job. But again, the sort of ultranationalism that comes about in Trump rallies is deeply disturbing. Um, you don't see that in any other rallies. So why is it that Trump alone is polarizing people to this extent? You have to wonder why. People will say, "Oh, he speaks the truth. He's not politically correct," but I think there's more to it than that. I think the man is a demagogue, and I think he is he is attracting some very extreme support. When you see people being roughed up for disagreeing with Donald Trump, that's disturbing. Compare that to the other Republican candidates. You will get people. I'll give an example. Marco Rubio, you had an atheist asking him quite a confrontational question. Marco Rubio responded in a very civil manner. Ted Cruz was confronted by an angry farmer in Iowa. I don't even particularly like Ted Cruz, but he handled that in a very civil manner. Pretty much the rest of the Republican field does the same thing, and the Democrat field. Donald Trump is unique in his rallies, in the sheer level of intolerance that his rallies shows. So, in other words, it's perfectly okay for him to slander all Mexicans or slander all Muslims or come out with what basically are misogynistic comments. I don't think we can deny that. Um, and he then, him and his supporters think that's fine. Mocking a disabled reporter is another one. This goes on. But as soon as anyone criticizes Donald Trump, let's shout them down, let's rough them up. There is something very hypocritical about that for a start, but frankly disturbing. So, to me, it is quite alarming that this man is leading the Republican race. And, the thing about Sanders is I don't actually believe Sanders will become president. If I thought that Bernie Sanders was going to become president, I would have some concern about him too. But I think the demagoguery is less in Sanders rallies. You say what you want about Bernie Sanders, but the simple fact of the matter is he does not rough up opponents. Donald Trump does. I don't think anyone could deny that fact. You might not like Bernie Sanders' politics, and I'm not a massive fan of his politics either, but there's just a complete contrast in their characters. Just leaving aside politics, just focus on character for a second. It does matter. Um, so I hope beyond hope that the American people, and I agree with President Obama, I think ultimately people will see past this, but it's disturbing that he has the support that he has at this stage. The thing about Trump is he comes out with these vague sound bites and he gives no gravitas to them whatsoever. And it's almost like you're watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Like, we're going to take on the bad guys. Let's all love America. And by the way, a quick word about this. People say, oh, he supports the veterans and so on. I've no doubt that there are many veterans who support Trump, but you know what? Veterans, I think common sense shows they're like any other group of people insofar as they're diverse. I refuse to believe that all veterans are enthusiastic about Trump. I know there are many open minded veterans who are wary of Trump. I've seen that in comments. I've seen that from so this idea, and again, it's a characteristic of far right politicians that they pander to the military. It's the same here in Europe. You know, the best way to get that sort of support, this sort of ultra nationalistic thing, is by saying, "Oh, I'm for the veterans." Anyone could say that, and Trump is very skilled at this sort of populist rhetoric. I think it's dangerous. Um, and the more I watch this race, On one hand, it fascinates me. On the other hand, it troubles me. Um, I hope to goodness. I mean, personally, I hope the Republicans choose someone like Governor Kasich, but I don't think that's going to happen, and that's troubling. Um, Truth is, although I'm not a Republican, I wish they would choose anybody over Donald Trump right now. Well, I'm a bit concerned about Ted Cruz as well, but Trump is dangerous. There's just no question about this, and you don't need to be on the political left to see that. I'm sure there's many American conservatives are concerned about Trump because, among many other things, the man is not consistent. They are right to be concerned about the fact he has a track record of supporting the Democrats. Now, that to me shows the man is an opportunist. Um, I am an outsider. I'm not telling anyone how to vote. I'm not telling Trump supporters they don't have the right to support him and all the rest of it. But, I come from a country that believes in free expression, as does America. And this man could well be the most powerful man in the world in a year, less than a year. So, of course, it's something that all democracies should be concerned about because there is a trend with this. I'm not for a second saying that Donald Trump is Hitler. I don't believe he is. But I do think he is the most dangerous American political candidate in several decades. I mean, I want to sort of emphasize how many people feel about this. When George W. Bush was president, he was deeply unpopular in many parts of Europe, right? That goes without saying. Now, people like me who were very critical of Bush look at Bush and see him as a moderate compared to Trump. Now, what does that tell you? That George W. Bush comes across as a moderate compared to Donald Trump. Bush even comes across as likable. This is coming from someone who was very critical of many of Bush's policies. Although, to be fair, I have come a bit more less critical than I was before. But I just think that Donald Trump, it's not even a case that he has some pretty hard right views, but he's a likable person. The guy's an asshole. I mean, anyone who mocks a disabled person, the guy's an asshole. I don't know how people can like this guy. Um, Whatever caveats of decency he occasionally offers, he just tempers it by doing something that is frankly repugnant. This is all my opinions, you can think I'm full of shit. You can say I'm talking here about Trump supporters. You could call me Eurotrash, you could call me whatever. I don't give a shit. Because there needs to be a counter argument to this narrative that Trump is throwing out. And yeah, I just hope beyond hope that the American people see common sense and don't elect this man. And by the way, that is not to say that there is, I'm not saying that candidates should be ultra politically correct, and I'm not saying that all of Trump's particular policies are bad, but I think he's dangerous for the rhetoric he's using, for the rhetoric he's using, for the divisive nature in which he's going about things, and for the fact his sound bites are so vague. I'm yet to see Donald Trump actually go into details about pretty much any of his policies. The man is an opportunist demagogue, and I stand by that because he's demonstrated it time and time again.